Hey, my name's Hannah England. I recently got married, so I was a Hill before that. And like our requirements for this project, I dug into my family history as much as I could just to find out what I could about my grandparents, their parents, things like that. Just to get as much information. I realized was really hard to do. My family, growing up, I always realized that we didn't talk about where we came from a whole lot. And I think I see why now, because a lot of people don't know. And I know I talked to my grandparents, but even they were kind of unsure of some of their grandparents. And I know they're getting kind of older, and that's kind of hard to remember. So I'm just going to kind of share what I got. I know it's not a whole lot, but I did learn a little bit about where I came from, and at least going 4 generations back. So my parents are William Hill and Tammy Hill. My dad was born in Nashville, Georgia. It's a tiny town right outside of Tifton. He grew up there pretty much his whole life. He was born in Tifton, and then they moved to Nashville. But it's basically around the same area, and that's where he was his whole life until he went to school at UGA. He went to law school and then ended up he didn't want to be a lawyer, so he backtracked and became an insurance agent. So that's what he's been doing. He's done that for almost 20 years. That's pretty much all he's ever done, all he knows. And he has one sister. So going back from there, my dad's parents are Cecil William Hill and Betty Joyce Hill. My grandfather was born in Glenville, Georgia. He moved around, but pretty much stayed in that area. He moved to Reidsville, Tifton, Pooler, Nashville, and Savannah. He went to Florida State University briefly, didn't graduate, but did go. And I know he went to a couple other schools, but Florida State was where he spent most of his time. He worked on a farm growing up. He started working on a bank after school. He ended up becoming that bank president, and during that time he was also the mayor of Pooler, which when he was mayor it was a little small town, and that's grown into such a bigger city now. He was a member of the city council, and he had 3 siblings. And then he married Betty Joyce Hill when he was young. She was born in Reidsville. Again, stayed in that area, small town, moved to Pooler, Tifton, and Nashville. She didn't work a whole lot. She was a waitress, and I know she worked at the Port of Savannah, or was a clerk at the Port of Savannah. But other than that, she didn't really have a job or hold a job. And she has 4 brothers, so I thought that was interesting because I have 4 brothers too, so maybe it runs in the family. And then if I'm looking at my dad's parents, his dad's name was Cecil William Hill Sr., so he got his name from his dad. Again, I didn't know, going from here back, I did not learn a whole lot of information. I even talked to my grandparents a little bit, and they couldn't give me a whole lot of information, but they were from Glenville, and they moved to Reidsville later in life. He worked at the post office, and he was a World War II vet, which actually he died in service. And then his wife was Audrey Hill. Again, she worked in Glenville, or lived in Glenville, and then Reidsville, and then she was a stay-at-home mom. And my dad's mom's parents were Willie Jasper Akins, they call him WJ, and Janie Atkins. They lived in Reidsville as far as I know, their whole life, and they both worked on a farm for their living. Going to my mom's side, my mom's name is Tammy Hill. She was born in Florida, grew up in Stone Mountain, Georgia. She went to, they call it, oh my goodness, I can't remember, but she went to a small college in Atlanta, I think it was like Lower Clarksdale, Upper Avondale or something, I don't know. She went to a small college for a few years, but didn't end up graduating. She worked in a preschool for a while, worked in a church preschool, and then worked in just I guess a government preschool. And then when I was born, she stayed at home. And she grew up with two brothers, to her parents, Jim White and Jody White. Jim was born in Cushing, Oklahoma. He moved to Florida, went to the University of Florida, and then he ended up working on the pipeline in New York. And he was an insurance agent for State Farm, or is an insurance agent for State Farm. He just retired a couple years ago. He was an insurance agent his whole life, and he had two brothers. His parents were Jim White and Jerry White. Again, there wasn't a whole lot of information, but we do know that they lived in Oklahoma for a while. His dad, Jim White Sr., I guess, worked on the pipeline, and Jerry White owned her own beauty shop. And then my mom's mom is Jody White. She was born in Dunwoody, Georgia, so she's been around the area her whole life. She went to Georgia Southern for a little bit. I don't think she graduated, but she did attend. And then she ended up becoming the secretary of a construction business that her father owned. And then once she had her two brothers, she became a stay-at-home mom, and she had one brother as well. And then her parents are Dallas Thompson and Betty Thompson. As far as I know, Dallas owned his own construction company, which my grandmother was the secretary, and then Betty helped out with that construction company but was a stay-at-home mom. So I have a few names of my great-grandparents, or great-great-great-great-grandparents, sorry, too many, I don't know, 5 generations back, but that was about as much as I could get out of that. I am actually now interested in doing the Ancestry.com just to see if I can get a little more information, but on quick turnaround, this is what I can find out about my family.